name is Luke Hattelstad. I am the Public Information Officer for Arapahoe County, and this is Conversations with a Commissioner. Tonight, our special guest is Commissioner Nancy Sharpe of District 2, and she is joined by Director Cheryl Ternes of our Human Services Department. This is one of many virtual events we've been having in recent months. You may have attended some of the other ones. They've been mostly COVID specific. I believe we've done 10 of them since the shutdown started. And these events are a little bit different, the conversations. We've had 3 already with other commissioners, and we're going to do one tonight and one next week. The conversations with commissioners are virtual versions of events that we try to do in person in normal times. And this is when you may have attended one in the past, and you may have joined your district's commissioner at a library or a school or something like that, or a city hall. And what we try to do is get each commissioner out to their folks, to their constituents, talk to them a little bit about what's going on in the county, and give them updates about what they can expect in the coming months. So we wanted to restore that even in a virtual format for this round. We probably will be doing it virtually again in the fourth quarter, and hopefully we'll all be able to meet in person again as soon as possible. So tonight's event is not so much COVID focused. There, of course, will be talk about COVID, but we don't have any medical experts or anything like that on the call. So what we are going to do is update you about all the other county business that's been continuing. And even during all this crisis, we've been focused, of course, very heavily on remedying the COVID situation in any number of ways. But what we're doing here is talking about the ongoing county business. We still have plenty of work to do with the day-to-day operations, and we've made some adaptations based on our inability to do things in person as much as we normally would. So Commissioner Sharpe and Director Ternes are going to talk a little bit about what the county and what the specific departments are doing. So what we want to do is make this as interactive as possible. And in order to do that, if you are on our Facebook page or on our live event page, you can type questions into the box on the page, and they will come into a console that we observe here from the control center. And once we open it up to questions, we'll be able to get to those, and we're going to try and leave as much time as possible to have a back and forth. And if you're on the phone and you want to answer a question, you dial *3 and you'll be put through to an operator, and then that person will pass you through to us. So without further ado, I believe I am going to introduce Commissioner Nancy Sharpe of District 2.
Thank you, Luke. And hi, everyone. Welcome. Glad to have you with us tonight. And, we are doing things a little bit differently, as Luke said, and trying to reach everybody since we can't do that in person like we used to do. So we're trying all kinds of different things. And the purpose of this is to really reach out to you all. My fellow commissioners and I want to hear from you and hear what your thoughts are, how we're doing, and communicate with you as well the kinds of things that the county's doing and the important work that is still going on, even though we have some difficult times with COVID. We've done a couple of things, so we'll move on to the first, if we could go to the first slide. Thanks again for being with us. And we have increased our conversations with commissioners, as Luke was talking about. We've also had town halls, and we've had, I think, 11 or 12 of those, and have another one planned in September, trying to talk about the things that are important to you all and have you be able to call in. Obviously, many of them have been COVID related. We've also increased our commissioner newsletters to provide more of this information, our county line news, and some of the things that more communication now, because things are changing so quickly during this COVID outbreak. So if there are, we'd like to hear from you, and tonight is a really good opportunity to do that. But you can communicate with us, obviously, through our own personal emails there at the county, but also through arapahogov.com. Let us hear from you. And let's go ahead and get started. And to the next slide, please. And I think most of us know that this has been a very unusual year. We are all hopeful that, we'll get back to maybe some semblance of normal into next year. But in the meantime, we'll go to the next slide. Some of the things that are really important to everyone, obviously, are elections. We have an election coming up in a short period of time. Actually, ballots are going to go out in about the second week of October for the general election, which is November 3rd. And this will be our third election of this year. And we're now hiring election judges. And if you are interested in that, please go to arapahoevotes.com and let us hear from you. If you are interested, we love to have a citizen participation. It's really important for us to be able to have that. And we have great people, many who have volunteered for quite a number of years, and we appreciate that. Motor vehicles and the recording office. We have done all of our meetings with individuals are by appointment now to make sure that all of our citizens remain safe. And it's worked pretty well. We are not quite at full capacity. I think we're about 70% of the workload that we used to have. So I hope you'll have some patience with us. We're trying to keep you and our staff safe, and not all of our staff can work remotely. We have a lot of people already in the offices now. So look forward to serving you there. We also have a lot of services that we can do online and have really enhanced that during this period of time. So if you need to have something done with the clerk and recorder's office, check online first and see if you can get it taken care of. Whatever your needs are taken care of online first, and then you wouldn't have to come in. And if that doesn't work, give us a call or make an appointment, and we'll get you in as soon as possible, and trying to make that as convenient. We send texts, so, if you come in and you're a little bit early, we'll send you a text if you're waiting in your car, and then you can come right in, and they'll serve you right away. We've also put in quite a number of drop boxes across the county, and for citizens to be able to put information in there, so you don't have to come into the office. So we are continuing to look at ways to, again, streamline all the processes that we have. This will be good for us now. We're making progress, but hopefully in the future, we can use a lot of the knowledge that we've gained now to serve you better in the future. And part of that is to digitize some of our records and make more things that are accessible to you online. So next slide. So the census, we all know, we've been hearing a lot about the census, and it's about to come to a close. The census is taken every 10 years, and it's really important because, as it says on this slide, it helps to determine our congressional seats, helps us to get the adequate funding that we need from the federal government to provide services to our citizens, and in the way that we need to be doing that. So, I think that it's, if you haven't filled out your census form that you got in the mail, there are going to be some door knockers that and some information on how you can do that. We're currently at 72% of a response rate, which is really good, but we need to improve that. 72% still doesn't account for all the things that all the individuals who live in our county, and therefore we could receive less funding than would be appropriate to help with all of the needs that our county has in order to serve our citizens better. So we're focusing on some of those areas that are sort of a little bit harder to reach in communities and areas that may have a slow or low response rate. And so we're trying to reach those individuals and get into those areas as well. So welcome your thoughts on that. and hopefully help us get our numbers up to 72%. We're kind of competitive with some other counties, and they're doing a little bit better than we are. So help us out by, by increasing our numbers. And next slide. So we have a couple of master plans. I'm going to briefly go over. The first one is our open space master plan. And as many of you all know, we have the only sales tax that Arapahoe County has is a 1/4 cent sales tax that funds our parks, trails, and open spaces for the county. And that this resolution expires in 2023. So you'll probably be hearing from us soon, maybe next year, about reauthorization of that resolution so we can continue to provide open space support for parks and trails. And I think we've seen how important it is during this COVID crisis. We are seeing more usage, and we're very fortunate that we live in a state where we can be outside and where we have these great trails and that people can use, and parks where people can go. So love to have your support and on that. What's important about this master plan is that we are working with our communities, neighboring communities, the cities, to make sure that we have connectivity among trails. And this helps us create a long-term strategy that can be used for many years. So hopefully you can, if you're interested in that, provide some feedback. We have been watching some opportunities, or trying to stay in touch with all the opportunities that we might have. And hearing from you all is really important, particularly because people have been using many of these facilities much more now than even in the past, and they were well used in the past. So if you've got some ideas on that you'd like to share with us, please feel free to do that. And again, get online, and we will be reaching out periodically to residents to make sure that that we do that we do contact or make contact with you all and give you every opportunity you have or can get to help us with how we do a good job of that. And we're also working with our cities. It's really important that our cities, all of our cities, the share back shares 50% of the total money collected is shared back with the cities. So they are able to use it in all of your cities to enhance their parks and trails and recreational opportunities. So next slide. We'll move on to the transportation master plan. This is, although we weren't moving around a lot earlier, we're starting to get out more now with more people back at work. And so we're seeing some of the traffic congestion that we kind of enjoyed not having there for a few months. But this is an opportunity, again, to have a long-term strategy for the county, and we're working with our cities. Unfortunately, many of the plans that have been for increasing tax revenues to help support our roads at a statewide level have failed. So we are working very diligently with our cities in the county. We have 13 cities, and we're working with them to help do develop a strategic plan that includes community from all of our communities and improving those roadways, whether it's maintenance or whether it's adding some capital improvement, a turn lane or something like that that helps traffic to move better. We have, encouraging all the citizens to participate, again, to help us with anything that you think is important, that areas where you think maybe we need some improvement. I think we've got probably a pretty good handle on that. But if you go look at the website right here, arapahoegov.com/transportation plan, you can provide that input in areas that you think are important or areas that you think we have bottlenecks that need some attention that we could do better. So please take this opportunity to let us hear from you, and we'll look forward to including your comments in the transportation plan. And let's see, next slide, please. The one thing that maybe many of you all have heard about is Metroplex, and mostly the information coming from Centennial Airport. And Metroplex was a plan by the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, to reroute traffic and make the traffic largely around, well, significantly around DIA more efficient and safer. So, but what that's done in the process of moving some routes around, it has impacted some of the traffic that goes to some of our local regional airports, and Centennial is one of them. So you may see some planes over your neighborhood that you haven't seen before, and it's important that we hear from you. We are concerned about some of the environmental impacts and the health concerns. Because of that, Arapahoe County has entered into a lawsuit against the FAA, largely because we don't feel like that FAA did a proper job of measuring the environmental impacts from 3,000 feet above the flight deck down to the ground. We feel like they should have done a better job. And they point to say that they have, but we can't really see where that work has been adequately done, and want to make sure that it is. So we have participated with the airport and in filing this lawsuit. So we'll stay tuned with that. I know that out at Centennial Airport. Now, I have received a number of complaints, concerns, because of the air traffic out there. Actually, operations at the airport are down about 11%, but what we have seen is an increase in some of the flight training, and what happens is that those flights take off in rapid succession, and so the noise and the impact of sort of constant flights is really difficult for a lot of citizens, and I understand that. And we are trying to work with our Robert Oleschlagers, who's our executive director and general manager out at the airport, is trying to work with a new control tower manager to try to help us with the frequency of those flights, and make sure that they're not coming, the saturation is not quite what it has been. So we're trying to work on that. I would encourage everyone who has noise complaints to try to attend the noise roundtable. You can get onto the Centennial Airport website and find out when their meetings are. They're all virtual, so you can listen in, you can make your comments, and of course, anytime that you have a noise complaint, you can file that with Centennial Airport, and they track those and act accordingly. I know it's difficult because the airport is open at night. Unfortunately, for a lot of people, it is difficult with that noise at night. And but the airport is required to be open 24/7. The airport does use federal funding for runway enhancements, improvements, and safety improvements. So I know it's difficult, and I certainly appreciate that. Next slide, please. The COVID-19 crisis. I think we're all very well aware. We're all living with this. And as I said earlier, most of the county services many of them are available online. And so we're hoping to be able to help help out in that process. But I just encourage everyone to do what you can. Obviously, we're all aware that wearing face coverings is required by the governor at this point and by Tri-County Health. And those signs are posted at all businesses, and just ask you to comply with that and try to do the best we can to keep everyone safe, wash your hands, and social distance. I think those are all really important things. And the reason is that the county has received from the Colorado Department of Health and Environment variants. So that allows all of us to have more people in restaurants, more people in church, in places of work, houses of worship, and have some events. And if our positivity rate goes up because we aren't as careful, we might lose some of those variances. And we don't want to do that. We want to make sure that our businesses can stay open. And it's a tough time for all businesses, and we want to try to do the best we can to support them and keep everybody healthy and support our businesses at the same time. So I think that's important, and hopefully you'll see the signs everywhere and ask for your support in complying with those. We have one of the things I will say is that the county, all of our county department directors, we meet every week talking about the kinds of issues that the county's facing and how to be proactive. And you're going to hear a little bit more about those in just a minute from Cheryl Ternes. And some of the business loans and grants that have been with some of the COVID money or CARES money that has been allocated to Arapahoe County. We're fortunate to have that, and we want to make sure that we do everything we can to keep our businesses open and support them. Next slide, please. And so this kind of gets into CARES. The county, Arapahoe County, did receive $114.5 million from the Federal CARES Act, and 45% of that, or $51.6 million, was shared directly with our 13 communities. And all of those funds have to go to COVID-related expenses. Some could be for business interruption, and you've probably seen on some of the cities and towns' websites that they are supporting businesses, and applications can be taken. Much of that has been done already, but some of them are going for a second round. So if you have a business, or you know someone who has a business or works in a business that could benefit from this, I just encourage you to get on the city. Try the city if their business is located in a city. Try that first. But also the county does have money that we're doing similar. We have similar programs, and are looking forward to helping out where we can. Some of the things that I'm just going to tell you a little bit about some of the things that we've done to date. So we've provided 373 county businesses with nearly $6 million in grants, helped 341 households with rent or mortgage assistance, and recently added another $500,000 to the program. We funded nonprofit health centers, food banks, homeless partners to address behavioral and physical health, foods, housing, insecurity needs. Partnered with Stride and the City of Aurora and Lincoln Health to offer mobile testing sites. And if you think that you have been exposed or think that you have COVID, get on either Tri-County website or our county website to find out where those locations are. They're located across the county, so you can find one that is convenient to you. We've also supported contact tracing and the department, the requirements of our Tri-County Health Department. We've augmented the county's early warning data system with, sounds kind of funny, but sewage water testing. I think you heard that. There was something on the news today about one of the colleges where they think that they did measure this, and they think that they're going to, it's kind of a precursor warning that there is an outbreak coming, and it's a way to test that. We've also worked with UC Anschutz to work on a first responder community seroprevalence testing program, and are getting the results now from that. We've implemented facility improvements consistent with best practices, and very importantly, provided PPE for employees and public guests. So now I'm going to turn it over to the presentation over to Cheryl Ternes, and she's going to go through some of our additional CARES programming. Welcome, Cheryl.
Oh, thank you, Commissioner Sharpe. Good evening, everyone. So before I get into the specific elements of the slide, I wanted to give everyone a quick overview of the Human Services Department in Arapahoe County. So it is the largest department in the county, second to the Sheriff's Office. We have around 617 FTEs. Colorado is unusual in that we have a state supervised, county administered system. We're one of only 9 states that has that, which basically means that we are supervised by 2 state departments. One is the Colorado Department of Human Services, and the other is the Healthcare Policy and Financing Department. And of course, the board oversees directly the department. They hire the director, they approve the payroll, and of course, the budget. It's a very complicated department. There's many programs. Many of them focus on vulnerable populations, which I'm going to talk a little bit about because those are the folks that some of the folks that we have focused on with our CARES funding, which is really critical. So in Human Services, we've used CARES funding to develop and implement a hotel motel voucher program. So we have partnered with 7 agencies so far who will be providing these vouchers to those people that find themselves homeless because of or as a result of COVID, or who need temporary housing because COVID has made it unsafe for them to be at home. And we don't want homeless folks congregating in camps because that helps that's not a good thing in terms of passing COVID onto each other. So it's important to get these folks into hotels so that they don't, so that we can contain the spread of the virus. We've also established a similar program for food services, such as our community food banks and also our Meals on Wheels programs. Those agencies have been really taxed during this time because the demand for food has increased significantly because more and more people are finding themselves out of work or with decreased income because of furloughs, et cetera. So they are finding the need to supplement their food costs using food banks. So we right now are partnering with around 13 agencies to assist them in being able to provide more food to more people. We've also used our CARES funding to reimburse our behavioral health and physical health organizations for PPE, personal protective equipment, as well as telehealth, which has become absolutely critical for them during this time, and also providing a reimbursement for sanitization costs. Arapahoe County really does excel in providing mandated services such as food assistance and responding to child abuse and neglect, administering the Medicaid program. And the Human Services Department has been recognized for 4 years in a row for a distinguished performer in that area. We are one of the only large counties. We are the only large county, to have received this award for 4 years in a row. So we have met all of the performance measures that are expected. And basically that tells us that we are extremely efficient and effective in providing these services. And we also are recognized for being very fiscally responsible and accountable with the allocations that we receive to run the programs. So thank you. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Luke Hollestead now to talk about the Sheriff's Office.
Thanks. Before I get into the details from the Sheriff's Office, I wanted to ask you a couple of questions. We had a few here that are related to your department. First one is, commissioner or commissioners are tied to the All Health Mental Health Network. I think that they mean who's the liaison?
I think they serve on the board. So I think there's a commissioner that serves on each of those boards for Aurora Mental Health and All Health.
Okay, so and I know Commissioner Holland is involved with All Health. Are any of the other commissioners that you're aware of?
I think Commissioner Conti works with All Health. Mm-hmm.
And Cheryl, the other thing I want to talk about, I mean, I assume that your people are not doing any less work over the last 6 months, and I not only doing more work, but it's probably quite a bit different than what they're used to. Can you talk a little bit about the various precautions that your caseworkers and your other folks have had to take with all the work that they, with this increased workload?
Certainly. So for our child protection workers who are mandated to go out and investigate reports of child abuse and neglect or adult abuse and neglect, they are equipped with personal protective equipment in order to stay safe. We have a very stringent protocol for them to make sure that before they enter a home, that they know what they're entering into in terms of, those basic questions that everyone is asking. Do you have a temperature? Is there anyone in the house who has experienced a sore throat or cough, etc.? And then they can don the protective equipment. If we are aware that there's actually a case of COVID-19 in the home, then we will conduct the interview, like, for example, from the front porch or the yard, or we'll do it by phone in the on the porch or the yard. So we have been very careful about protecting our caseworkers, but they do in fact have to still continue to go out and do these investigations. On the public assistance side, applications for food assistance and Medicaid have increased significantly. Also for our cash assistance programs, in some cases more than 50%. And some of that is because of need, and also the federal government has waived some of the requirements temporarily, so that more people would be eligible to receive benefits during this time. So we have definitely been taxed, but we have met the challenge and have still maintained a very high level of service to those who are in need.
That's great. And I know that one of the stories that was coming out in the spring as this all unfolded was the concern that kids who might be in abusive homes or situations, they wouldn't have the people like the daycare workers, the teachers looking out for them to notify the people to say, hey, this kid might be in trouble, because they weren't seeing those kids every day. Now that schools are reopened, we obviously are concerned about keeping everyone healthy from COVID. But can you talk a little bit about how reopening the schools is helping your work in terms of identifying and correcting abuse?
Well, because most of our school districts are, like our largest school district is still totally remote. So we are not seeing the level of reports of abuse and neglect, because teachers and school personnel still don't have their eyes on kids. So that is still a concern. Some of the other school districts have a hybrid. So our reports are still down considerably, maybe 40% still from what they were this time last year when school gets back in session. So it's still a significant concern. However, we have used some of our CARES funding to hire additional staff that are acting as liaisons with the schools, to partner with them to identify families, for example, that haven't sign their kids in properly to remote learning, or maybe there's still a concern about the family not engaging. And so we are being proactive with the schools to try to identify those families that need help.
That's great. I mean, your staff is remarkable in the best of times. So I'm really in awe, and I think all of us are, at everything they've been doing to make sure that people aren't falling through the cracks. So thank you. Now I will talk a little bit about the sheriff's office. So the basic profile for those of you who aren't aware is the sheriff's provides public safety services to about 644,000 people across the county. That's 900 square miles or so. And they have full-time patrols in smaller towns such as Centennial, Bennett, Deer Trail, Foxfield, and then of course the unincorporated part of the county is where they do most of their work. There are 8 patrol precincts in the county, and they manage the 1,500 bed detention facility. The sheriff's office just published its 2019 annual report. They do that in the middle of the following year, so this covers the 2019 calendar year. And some of the highlights of that are one big one was that the case reports overall have declined since the previous year, 2018, because they've been able to resolve more incidents, which is great. They had more than 84,000 calls for service during the past year. And the biggest one is calls about motor vehicle theft, which was over 900 cases. You may have seen in the news, there have been a lot more attempted car break-ins and abductions, I guess, than there usually are. So lock your cars, don't leave anything in there, don't leave anything visible. That still goes, and it's more prevalent than usual, so keep an eye on that. The Sheriff's Department had 2 use of force complaints in 2019, and then they had a 4% drop in the number of sustained internal affairs cases. And that means cases that have gone beyond just the initial complaint and into more of a thorough investigation. That's down 40%. Their overall response time averaged 4 minutes. And on the accreditation line, it's an accredited law enforcement agency, and they have what's called a Triple Crown Award, which I'm not entirely familiar with what the organizations are, but it's 3 different organizations that accredit law enforcement agencies across the country. And the Arapahoe County Sheriffs are one of only 5% of all law enforcement agencies in the country to achieve this level of accreditation. So under Sheriff Brown, things are moving ahead. As you probably recall, about a year ago, we were promoting the tax measure to raise property taxes slightly to help pay for a new detention center. And Commissioner Sharpe, before you get into or as part of your budget discussion, maybe we should talk a little bit about what the status of the detention center tax funding is right now, and how you're looking at it, you and the board, the rest of the board, looking at it for the upcoming year.
So most everybody knows that we had a initiative on the ballot that it did fail, and that was to build a new detention facility. And it was not just for housing. The jail is 33, almost 34 years old, and it was built for about a third of the number of, maybe even a fourth of the number of people that were currently housed in the jail. So a lot of from the medical facilities, the cafeteria facilities, just some of the basic laundry, some of the basic functions are quite a bit smaller than what the demand is today for our population. We're now at about 650,000 people. We're the 3rd largest county in the state of Colorado by population. And so as our population grows, so does the need for jail, the housing improvements in the jail, and some of it's just because it's quite old, and the infrastructure there has just not kept up with the intense use every day. It's a city with probably somewhere around 1,500 people that are there every day, not just people who are housed in the jail, but people who work in the jail. And so it's a full-time center and a lot of demands on the infrastructure. So that is something that because that initiative did fail, we are looking at increasing costs for maintenance over the years to come. And we're trying to work again on a strategy that we can understanding better why it failed, the reasons, what we need to do differently to communicate differently, to plan a different strategy around what we develop, what we build there, what we don't build, the size, those kinds of things. We're focusing on that. COVID has kind of made that we're taking a step back a little bit on that, but it's still there. The need hasn't gone away. So we're reevaluating where we go from here, but it will impact the budget over many years. So I guess that can, Luke, that can lead us right into post-COVID. And, I think most everybody is reading and knows that with the significant impacts to certainly to restaurants, businesses that were closed for many months, some that are not, many that are not back to full operation yet, that there are financial consequences to that. And in a large part, our cities are seeing the impact most significantly now because they are largely funded by about 2/3 of their revenue is funded from sales tax. So when people are not spending, shopping, going to restaurants, things like that, it definitely has an impact, immediate impact on our cities. In the county, we're about 60%, a little bit more than that, 2/3 of our general fund money comes from property tax. So and I already mentioned our 1/4% sales tax, that's the only sales tax we have, and we've seen a slowdown certainly, and we'll see an impact to our open space sales tax. But the general fund is about half of our budget. We have about a $430 million budget, and about $200 million of that is general fund money. The remainder comes from the federal and state government to fund programs that Cheryl Ternes talked about that help our community with all kinds of issues, whether they're food and housing related, and all the things that she mentioned. So we will see slower growth in revenue right now. We're in 2020, we're seeing about 3.2 growth in revenue as opposed to 2019 when it was 4.6. So we're seeing a little bit of an impact, but when our property taxes are reevaluated, and the impact of that will come largely in 2022. So we're already preparing. We're preparing now for budgets for 2021 with our departments and offices, and asking everyone to start tightening up their belts and learning from the kinds of things that we have learned through COVID on how to be more efficient and yet still provide a good level of service to our citizens. So we're looking to all of those things, and but we will be tightening our belt and asking our departments and offices to do that as they go into 2021 and certainly in 2022. Unfortunately, expenditures continue to grow. The cost of equipment and the cost of staff continues to rise. Benefits, things like that, continue to go up. And so it's going to make now in the cities and us in the future in the county really being very focused on how to do better. I've talked about declining sales tax revenues, and just know that in the county, we are doing everything we can to be as efficient as we can. Some of the things that are on this slide, we always balance our budget. We are required to do that, and we have a little bit left over that I think of kind of as a rainy day fund that we need in case something significant happens in our county that we need to dip into that funding. We will have it available. So I think those are the things that are, I think, mostly just for you all to know that we do have a backlog of deferred maintenance. I just talked about the jail, that the detention facility, that's one of the areas that maybe not deferring, but because it's a very much older facility, that the increased maintenance, I think we know on our properties, we own a home, that that the older the house is, the more we're going to have to invest in maintaining it. And so we're looking at all of those things, and don't anticipate any substantial increase at all in revenues. So we'll be keeping in touch and trying to do the best we can for controlling all of our spending as we go into 2021 and certainly in 2022. And we'll be reaching out to citizens, I'm sure, along the way to ask you what's the most important, what are the most important services to you, and how can we do the best we can with the dollars that we've got. Just a reminder that Arapahoe County, our current county mill levy is 11.684, which is the lowest in the metro area. And our general fund is subject to TABOR. We're only one of 8 counties in the state whose general fund is still subject to TABOR. So we take that very seriously, and that's what we all of our offices and departments are tasked with. So I think that next slide.
Yeah, that should do it.
Yeah, I think all of it. We know we've got some tough decisions, certainly on the budget. I want to thank Cheryl because, as Luke said, the job that you all do, it's a tough job. And particularly in times where there are more and more people in need, trying to help all of those individuals and trying to do it the best we can and as quickly as we can and efficiently as we can, I think makes a big difference. So I want to thank you and your whole entire team for the great work that they do. It means a lot in so many different ways. And particularly we've seen during the last 6 months or so. So Luke, I guess we're going to...
Yeah, we're going to open it up to questions, and we have a few online. If you are on the phone and want to ask a question, you should dial *3, and you'll be put through to an operator who will take you to us. While we're waiting for that, I have a couple of questions from online. And we've touched on this, on both of these a little bit, but the first one is, how is the county preparing for the election in November? And I assume that means with the COVID situation and more mail-in and so forth. We do have a slide at the top of this presentation that addresses that. I know we have 32 secure drop boxes. We're going to be one of my jobs is to work with the clerk and recorder's office to push out the early voting options that people have. I believe the polling centers open on October 19th. People will have their ballots in hand by then. And if it's important to you to vote in person, you're welcome to come to a polling center. We have all the COVID controls in place. And we are encouraging people to vote before Election Day. And you have about almost a 2-week window in there where you can do that. And that'll help alleviate the crowds and any COVID risk that might be happening there. Obviously, mail-in is an option. And, Colorado's been doing mail-in voting for about 7 or 8 years, I believe, and has done it very successfully with very few problems. So we're feeling pretty confident here. Commissioner, is there anything else you've learned from the clerk that you can share with us about this?
Yeah, I think using the drop boxes is really important. They're in so many different places by cities, at the county buildings, some of the recreational centers, some things like that. So if you want to know where a drop box is, get on the Arapahoe website and you can find out where those are. And again, we've had presentations. I've been over personally, as the other commissioners have, to our election center, and there are all kinds of controls to help us to ensure that our elections are safe and fair and honest. And so I think because in maybe some other states, there are other states around the country that have not been using the ballots mail-in options that we have had. over many years. So we are confident that in Arapahoe County, we can handle anything that comes our way and can handle it safely too. So, and most of the ballot, most of the people drop their ballots off anyway at some kind of a drop-off facility, and some smaller percentage mail them in, and again, a smaller percentage of people want to actually go and vote in person. So we'll have all of those options, but we're going to do it safely, and we're going to do it honestly, fairly.
Excellent. And again, we've touched on this also throughout the presentation. An online questioner is asking, will COVID change the way the county does business from now on?
I think it's possible. I think we've talked about some of the things more and more that we can do online. And we've already been doing a lot of things, have been doing some things by appointment only, and now that's more appointments, which I'm hoping some people will think is convenient, because you have your appointment, you show up when your appointment is, and you get right in. There's no waiting in lines and things like that. But certainly COVID is going to, has pushed us to really look at the things that we can do more in a more remote manner, and still do a good job for you all, for our citizens in that regard. So we're talking about all of those things, and hope to do, I think in the future we'll continue to look for innovations, and in whether it's COVID related or anything else that can come. Technology plays a big part in what we do every day, and we'll continue to look for opportunities there.
Well, and to follow up on that, maybe Cheryl, can you talk a little more about the telehealth stuff you've done with the various agencies? Because that seems like a real advancement in the way people can get mental and behavioral and physical health services without having to go into an office.
Absolutely. So we were able to reimburse many of those organizations, as I said, for for laptops, for hotspots, for anything that the agency needed to be connected properly in order to do virtual appointments. So and what I'm hearing back from them is that it has worked really, really well. They were able to stay connected to their patients, and at this point they'll remain doing some level of virtual, but they're also happy to be able to do in-person appointments for those who are in need of that. Some of our folks who suffer from mental illness, for example, it's really imperative for some of them to have that human direct interaction. So I think it's a balance, and I think going forward that there will continue to be a level of virtual visits, both for physical and behavioral health. As we're probably all seeing in our lives with our insurance providers, like Kaiser, for example, who's very much now providing a lot of visits virtually, which really helps in terms of convenience for folks who are employed.
Yeah, and I mean, nothing can replace the human touch of a service, but I think we all on our staff side of things are sort of surprised by how many things we can do virtually that are still quite effective, and serving our constituents the way we want to.
I just want to say, we're not going to completely go to everything online. We want to be able to, we can't do that. And we still want to be able to meet with people and talk with people face to face. There are things that we definitely need to, we don't want to do away with that. I think COVID has taught us how important, have shown us how important those face to face interactions with individuals are so important. And getting kids back in school to interact with each other, and for us, the working community, interact with each other is so important. So we'll do what we can to make it easiest for our citizens to get what they need. But, we know it's, we still want to see people, and we still want to interact. That's an important. of society, I think.
Absolutely. And I wanted to circle back on the Metroplex issue. You mentioned the FAA lawsuit. Do you know what the timetable is for that?
We have submitted our, we're in the process of submitting the information that we need to the FAA through Centennial Airport. And I don't believe that that brief has been finally approved and submitted yet, but it will be sometime here in the next few weeks. And then I can't honestly tell you how long it will take before we get something back from the FAA and know, obviously, they will acknowledge that they have received our concerns, our complaints. And I know Douglas County is doing the same thing, is working with Centennial Airport and Greenwood Village. And so we're all trying to work together to see if we can get information back. But I can't tell you the exact time frame of when we'll hear back. It'll probably be a slow process. It's a federal process. So.
Absolutely. And I'm going to ask you the same question I've been asking all the other commissioners. We have time for about one more. So can you, how optimistic are you about the future of Arapahoe County and why?
Oh gosh. Well, I certainly am. That's a big question. Yeah, I really am. I think we've got so many good things going for us in Arapahoe County. We have some amazing cities, citizens, businesses, and I think all of those things we all pull together. I think one of the things that has been so good about COVID, if we can find one bright thing, is that we are working extremely effectively with our cities and collaboratively with our cities to solve some of the issues that we have. And I think this has driven us maybe closer together. I think we always worked well together, but I do think that this has shown us how much more effective we can be. And I am optimistic. We're a growing county. We've got quite a number of issues. I think, as most people know, our 18th judicial district has been Arapahoe, Douglas, Lincoln, and Elbert. And in 2023, we'll be starting to make that change to effective 2024 that Arapahoe County will be its own judicial district, 18th, because we are growing so much. And but we've got a lot of good things going our way. We've got a great county, great citizenry, terrific leaders in our county. So the right people to handle the tough issues that are coming forward, I think.
Totally agree. Well, that brings us to the close of this session. I want to thank Commissioner Sharpe and Director Cheryl Ternes of Human Services for all the great thoughts and comments and updates tonight. I want to remind everyone that we have a couple more upcoming virtual events. A week from tonight, September 10th, same time, 7 o'clock, we will have Commissioner Kathleen Conti of District 1. And she will be joined by Public Works and Development Director Brian Weimer. So if you're a transportation junkie and want to talk about that, that's the one to attend. And following, we're going to go back to a broader COVID-related town hall that will include all the commissioners and probably a number of directors and other elected officials on Thursday, September 24th. I believe that's also at 7 o'clock. And that will also have some officials from Tri-County Health. So we can give you the latest COVID updates. We can give you the latest schools updates. This one's going to have a focus more on mental health. So I'm sure Cheryl will be there along with some of the mental health network she works with. And thank you very much for attending. And we look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Thanks to everybody for joining us tonight. Good night.